We are on the cusp of a major social change. Do you feel it? Even if you don't, make no mistake, change is coming, and it is going to be unforgettable. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Hart, and here on Prime Spark, where we work with and on behalf of women over 55, I want to help you find that spark that will ignite your way forward, reflect your gifts to the world, and illuminate your path through this next stage of life. Through these podcast conversations, I hope to inspire you to see how you can make a significant contribution to some of the gnarly problems that are facing us right now. Join me, and together let's discover our Prime Spark.
Hi, and welcome to Prime Spark. I'm Sarah Hart, and I'm so happy you're here with us. Prime Spark is designed for women over 50 or close, with a goal to help us all live our happiest, most fulfilling, and productive lives now and in the future. The mission of Prime Spark is to change the way our society sees and treats older women. That's a big mission, which only means we all need to be involved and we need to get going now. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Kim Rahir, a woman whose work I admire. Kim is a 61-year-old mother of three who was diagnosed with MS in 2013 and decided to ignore her doctor's advice and muscle her way back to a happy life. Last year, she became European champion in Masters Weightlifting in her age and weight category. Her journey inspired her to leave her career in journalism in her 50s and become a health coach for middle-aged women with a big focus on reactivating and rebuilding muscle. Today, she helps women to reverse midlife weight gain, get strong and lean, and have tons of energy. It works by reactivating and maintaining muscle mass. Welcome, Kim. I'm so happy you're here today.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. I'm really excited. I love the mission of your show. We should all be on this mission together.
Yes, we should. And thank you very much. I'm pretty passionate about it. So people can get, it's one of those things you can see actually after a while, people start blazing and trying to walk away from me. So it is very important. So Kim, just in getting started, let me ask you, do you experience getting older? And if you do, what is that experience? And if you don't, why is it that you think that you don't?
I absolutely do. And mostly I feel it in the way that I respond to the world or that the world impacts me. I feel that I'm more detached, which gives me so much more freedom. And I can feel this very big difference in how I measure my success, which is quite, when I first realized this, I was mind blown, because we usually measure our success and how does the world react to us, right? I go out and how are people looking at me? I talk and how are people listening to me? I put a post on Facebook and how many likes do I get? And today, I measure success the other way around. When I go to bed at night, I ask myself, how did I respond to the world today? The difference is I don't ask myself how I reacted, because I don't want to react. I want to respond. I want to take time and think and then respond to whatever is thrown at me. And, not every day is like a big adventure or anything, but there's like tiny hiccups and challenges and big things in every day. And I now ask myself, how did I respond? Did I let this sort of throw me? Did I lose my calm? Did I lose my composure? Did I take things too seriously? Did I take myself too seriously? So I've actually, getting older for me means that I measure success the other way around now. And I can tell you, it's very demanding. It's very challenging, but it's so empowering because it depends on you and not how anybody around you looks at you. If maybe you have 3 wrinkles or I don't know, crooked legs or whatever it might be. And I do live experience getting older as empowering.
That's lovely, Kim. I so wish we could figure out how to bottle that and give it to younger women because
Yes.
they live in a very difficult world. We live in a difficult world at the other end. They live in a difficult world at their end. And I wish we could help them understand what you just said.
It's this thing. We heard this from our parents. I suppose the same for you, when they were wishing they could sort of hand their experience down to us, just like this, without us going through it. But it doesn't work, unfortunately.
No, I think we all have to just live through it and learn lessons from it. So I'm really curious, Kim, about what gave you the strength to ignore your doctor's advice when you were diagnosed with MS in 2013 and go your own way to health. What gave you that strength to be able to do that?
I think it started with a bit of a traumatizing experience because when I got my diagnosis, that was like the second brush I had with illness. 2 years before that, it's not even true, it was longer. It was 4 years before that. But and then I was sort of happy and healthy for 2 years before then the MS struck. I had an episode of something that's called a Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is also autoimmune. It's also your body attacking its own nerves, and it strikes brutally from one day to the next. It's what happened to me. I was in hospital from one day to the next. I was seeing double after 3 weeks. I was completely paralyzed from the hips downward. And I felt so dehumanized in that hospital. I felt like a thing. You have no power in hospital anyways. When you can't walk, it's even worse. It was super scary. Then they told me, no, this is the one-off. It comes and goes. And it's true. It went. I got better. Then I was also told that I was, done with this kind of thing now. I was even told that I was too old for MS. Isn't it great to be too old for something? And then, it's not even true. When I thought that I had all this behind me, and then I was told, no, you are still a sick person. I didn't want to accept that as my identity. I just had this, and I think I focused it on being physically strong because that was this memory that I had in my bones, in my fibers, of being totally unable to move in the hospital. And I thought, if I can just hold on to my strength and be able to stand and walk and lift, then I can still speak up for myself, and then I can still be just a person and not a patient. And it was like a really very strong desire to just build a strong body. And I think it's also because autoimmune diseases are like a bit of a betrayal from, your body is sort of acting against itself. And you think, why? Why is this happening? What on earth? I want to be able to rely on my body. I want to trust my body. And I somehow focused this all on the physical strength. And I went through with it because this idea of having MS and that you do not know what the future is going to bring. You have no idea. What you thought was your future all of a sudden is just a big question mark. And it was so scary that all I could do to not give up was to focus on the present moment. I could not look ahead. And the present moment, even though my left hand is numb to this day from the relapses that I had, but I could walk, which I was grateful for when I got this diagnosis. I could move, and I just told myself, if I make the most of what I can do now, right now, and then maybe I can hold on to this. And this is how it started. This desire to become strong, this focus on what I can do in this very moment. And then it became sort of natural. Because why was I going to listen to a doctor who said, oh, be careful with exercise, when it was absolutely clear he had no idea what he was talking about?
That's really interesting, Kim, because what you just, let me say this back, and is this true? What I hear you saying is that you decided to focus on what I can do right now in the present moment and at least hold on to that. And then at some point you thought, well, if I can hold on to this, maybe I can build. Is that true? Is that what happened?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because doing this tiny thing that I could do, I mean, it wasn't that tiny. I was okay. But doing that one thing, it builds momentum. It builds confidence. And you start stacking. And this is my big mission. This is my one message to the world. You know, focus on what you can do now and start from there, but start now. Do what you can do now. And I think this is also crucial for older women. If we define ourselves with with this idea that more than half is behind us and it's downhill from here, and we don't know what's going to happen, then we're not going to do anything. We're just going to be paralyzed with fear. If we focus on what we can do now, and most of us, because we have all this experience, because we do not have to prove so much anymore, there's so much we can actually do if we set ourselves free from these things that I think we were taught were important, like looks or being reproductive or whatever it is. If we just focus on what we can do now with everything that we have learned, everything that we have been through, everything that we have seen and done, then we could do great things.
And then build on from that if we choose to, because we also have these clear messages constantly that when we get to 50, 60, to try to grow and become anything is ridiculous. I mean, we're past the time of doing that. So that's a big step right there to be able to do that. So describe, if there is such a thing, sort of a typical client who would come to you. What would she be saying?
I feel overwhelmed and exhausted in my everyday life. I can tell that I'm gaining weight and it's making me even more tired and even less confident. I've tried everything, everything, because it's all out there. You Google and it's all there. You do low carb, you do intermittent fasting, you think you have to do a couch to 5K. I've tried everything and it feels like my body just doesn't respond anymore. My body is sort of also betraying me. I'm not who I used to be. I cannot recognize myself in the mirror and I don't know what else to do. That's a very common occurrence. I get asked very often, what's the biggest problem for midlife women who come to you for help and for fitness? And of course, everybody thinks, oh, it must be the weight, and the weight is a problem. And I think the biggest problem is actually it's deep exhaustion. It's exhaustion from trying to keep up with certain ideas that don't fit you anymore, from trying old things that used to work or that everybody says work and they just not right for you. Exhaustion from looking after everything and everyone except yourself. And that's also, where we start the work. We actually start replenishing the energy, and before you know it, you feel like a different person. And it's not that hard, actually.
Oh, that's fascinating. It's when you first describe how the woman is feeling, it's a bit like what you said about your autoimmune disease. My body is not working anymore. My body's failing me. What I've been able to depend on. I mean, using myself as an example, I used to be able to decide, okay, I want to lose 10 pounds, and I lost it. No more. You can't I can no longer just decide that and then make it happen pretty quickly. So it's your body is not doing what you're used to having it do.
Well, what many women forget is that this is also the result of accumulation. because losing 10 pounds quickly, you can do that a few times, but over the course of your life, at some point you pay the price for that, because the way diet culture has indoctrinated us, we just want to drop the number on the scale. We're going to get rid of those 10 pounds quickly. What we're losing is actually muscle and bone, because we're just starving ourselves. We're shrinking. So we are shrinking the entire engine that's running our body. So every time we lost those 10 pounds in the past, we've made it harder to lose them again, because we dropped muscle and bone, and the body is ruthless. We don't have much muscle that we carry. That's fine. Then we need less energy. Perfect. So we're going to run on even less. Then you eat less and less. And you think, how is this possible? I'm eating less and I'm not losing weight. So it's not so much our age in itself that creates this situation, because the physiology of the body doesn't change. It is actually energy in, energy out for everything in the universe. But by accumulating these diets, and many women have lost those 10 pounds, I don't know how many times over. And every time that they shrank their engine, they shrank the machine that that we're fueling with food. So the machine becomes smaller and smaller. It needs less and less food. And then we are in this situation where we think, how's this possible? I used to do this all the time, and now it doesn't work anymore. It's also because our body actually did change, but we didn't notice it.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's fascinating. So, is that why diets don't work?
Absolutely. I mean, diets, the question is, it's always the same question, and it's very fascinating. What do you mean by work? If you want to drop 10 pounds very quickly, yes, they work. It's pretty easy to drop 10 pounds quickly. Did you know that when you get sick, the pounds, they just fall off you?
Right.
Is that something that you want to happen? No. Diets don't work also in the sense that the mindset that you do them in. It's you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to pull myself together for a limited amount of time. I'm going to white knuckle through a few weeks of misery, march through the desert, and then I come out the other side, and I'm this beautiful person, and I just go back to what I was doing before, and I live my life happily ever after. When this is not how it works. Because your body, it will drop the weight, it will shrink the engine, and then when you go back to normal, it will have just a lower, resting rate, metabolic resting rate, and you will eat normally, and you will gain the weight back, and then some weight on top. I find this so heartbreaking. All this suffering, all this misery, and then it all comes back, and then even more than you lost. This is like, your hard work destroyed over and over again. In this day and age, what we need to do is we need to operate lifestyle change. And I know it doesn't sound sexy, and, marketers will tell me, no, you just have to tell women they can lose 20 pounds and it's going to be fine. But that's not really the truth. We really need to change our lifestyle. We do not have enough opportunity to move, and we must fight for our right to move because our body needs it. We are assaulted by food propositions 24/7, and our primal brain wants to eat all of that because that's how it's programmed. So we cannot just think that there's going to be like this natural way of getting back into things once we have dropped the weight with this harsh method. We do need to change our lifestyle. We have to become super intentional and aware, and especially women in their 40s, 50s, and beyond. We need to be super intentional and look after ourselves.
What would you tell a woman in her 40s, 50s, 60s? Or maybe those are different things you would tell them, but that comes to you and says, I am exhausted. I've got this belly that I never had before. I've tried limiting fattening stuff. I think I'm very careful with what I eat, but nothing is making any difference.
Well, I'm going to ask her, do you have 15 minutes every day to spend on that problem, and then we'll solve it. I know this sounds too good to be true, but it's actually you want to start moving, you want to start building muscle, and you want to take it from there. We also need to look into nutrition, of course, because there's too much information out there, and many women say, "But I'm eating healthy," and that's fine. But eating for health or eating healthy and eating for fat loss is not exactly the same. It's also, we have to be intentional and specific. So I would look at how this woman moves. I would design a 15-minute exercise sequence for her to do every single day. Then we would look into her eating habits and turn them into like a fueling habit. Food is fuel, and you just want to see and feel. How is this food making me feel? Does it make me stronger? Does it help my workouts? Does it give me energy for the day? And, when you build your eating habit like this, it's also psychologically much easier because you're not telling yourself all the stuff that you're not allowed to eat and that you're going to be thinking about all day. Then, you just make it into a building, nourishing, constructive approach. And it takes time. It's not you cannot like flip a switch or something. You need a bit of patience to develop that mindset. But it comes from actually doing the things every day, the small things, that we then stack and that build momentum, and then you become that person.
I just want to clarify because I want to make sure that women are hearing this. That when you're saying 15 minutes a day, you're saying 5 minutes a day.
Absolutely.
Is that 15 minutes something a woman can do in her own home, or does she need to go to a gym or something?
No, absolutely in her own home. And I think this is actually, we tend to look for, the best type of exercise, what do I have to do, cardio or strength or intervals or this and that. The biggest point of all of this is we need to actually do it. And that's the big obstacle, because we all know we need to move and we should be doing strength training. We all know we should be eating broccoli, but how do we actually do this? So that's where I switched my approach to doing these 15 minutes a day that you do in your pajamas if you want to, first thing in the morning, just to make sure that you can do it, because the overcoming that resistance, and the resistance comes from inside ourselves. We don't want to change our habits. The resistance comes also from our environment. If you have to go to a gym and you have to drive through traffic for half an hour and find parking, that's big resistance against your new exercise habit. So if you can just, slip out of bed in the morning and do 15 minutes, part of the big success of this concept is that it's actually doable and that you can do it. And anybody can find 15 minutes in their day, I think.
So it seems to me, Kim, is this true that it's rather than trying to figure out how am I going to get to the gym 2 or 3 days a week, it's more about consistently doing something every day, not just finding some days when you can go do something. And it's
Absolutely.
the consistency that's important.
Yes. It's the consistency, it's the showing up every day, because it will also build that new mindset. It's a concept I've been thinking about for a while now, and I'm leaning more and more towards thinking that it's matter over mind that creates change. I know we love those ideas of waking up in the morning, being a different person and saying, from now on, I'm going to do all these things and I'm going to be that person. But in my experience, from my work, it's actually the other way around. Just doing the small things over and over again will create that person, will create that mindset. And if you show up every day for these 15 minutes, it will not be 2 weeks before you feel a surge in energy. This has been proven in my work over and over again. The women come in because they are like desperate and I don't know what to do anymore. and I want to drop that weight. Of course, we want to drop that weight. But the first thing they notice is that after, like, say 8, 9 days of exercising, they say, oh my God, I feel so much energy. And that, of course, is what you need then to keep doing the right things, to keep doing other things, to make good choices for yourself and for your health there. So that's why I also mentioned that the exhaustion at the very beginning, because I think that's actually where it starts. When we can replenish the energy, then very soon we can just rely on ourselves to make good choices, because we're not so depleted anymore.
So it's matter over mind. I love that. Matter over mind. So what is the biggest stumbling block for women? Is it this habit? Is it resistance? What is it? What do you find?
Well, I strongly believe that we need muscle and physical strength to be healthy and happy. I experienced this myself. Research is catching up with this. Like, we have tons and tons of evidence for this to be true. The problem for most women is that it's not in our culture, it's not in our upbringing, it's not in our virtue catalog that our parents taught us. My parents taught me all sorts of things, great values, everything. But I don't think they once said, it's very important, Kim, that you be physically strong and able to lift boxes or carry groceries. I mean, it's taken for granted when you're like a mom, or that you carry toddlers and groceries, but it's not like taught as a value, physical strength. And it makes women fear that they might lose their femininity if they focus on this kind of endeavor and want to become physically strong. It's like, oh my God, maybe I'm going to become so bulky and so muscular, or I'm not going to look like a woman anymore. And even if they don't have these these thoughts, I think there's some kind of blockage, in our mind, to thinking that, women and lifting, what? Really? That somehow doesn't seem to fit. And I keep saying, nobody would ever say that a woman carrying 2 20-pound toddlers and the groceries, through her backyard, nobody's ever going to say, oh, that's not very feminine. What are you doing there? So it's not so much the strength itself that sort of puts women off. It's the idea and all the imagery that goes with the idea that makes them a little bit hesitant.
I think it's just the idea, is just a concept of building muscle mass, because immediately the picture that a lot of us get is this rippling muscle guy,
Yeah.
and a woman would think, gee, Minnie, I don't want to look like that.
Yeah. And it's funny because you don't have no idea how hard it is, how much hard work and how many, many years of hard work it takes to look like that, even for a guy. I mean, we except for maybe one outlier in 500,000, a woman can't look like that.
What do you think? I think you might say exhaustion, but I'm curious about, why do you think so many women in midlife, so many of us get ourselves into this situation? I mean, it's so common. I mean, you must know that better than anybody because you see it all the time. But is it that women, by the time they get to their 40s, 50s, 60s, are just exhausted?
Yes, and they are exhausted, and this is still a cultural thing, because we are, or maybe it's not cultural, maybe it's sort of in our genes, but maybe we don't need to go into that discussion. I think there's elements of both, but we are very nurturing kind. So we're looking after everyone, everything, all the time. We think that's our duty. We're also naturally drawn sometimes to do this. And when you have kids, it never stops. Then there's this moment, and this took me also some time to realize, actually, because you reach midlife and you think, okay, now kids are grown. I've held a job, I've built a home, I've raised kids. I can sort of relax now, maybe look after myself. And then lo and behold, your parents are old. and they need someone. So it never stops, because they also quite naturally expect their daughters to take care of them rather than their sons. So this nurturing role never stops. And if you haven't learned to draw boundaries, and I don't think this is part of our education either, you're going to be just totally depleted. You're going to be empty. Yeah, there will be so little left. And then the idea of doing something for yourself makes you think, oh my God, but that would be selfish, right? I have to do this first and that first. And we have this beautiful image, of the air mask in the oxygen mask on the plane. And they say, put on yours first before you help anybody. And, everybody says, yeah, of course, makes sense. And then in our everyday lives, we never do it. It's always until the last minute looking after everybody. And then, yeah, at some point, there's this kind of wake up. I think, oh my God, who am I? And I don't recognize myself. I am just so exhausted. And you lack motivation, you lack confidence, and you do not take the day as a gift. The day is more like a threat to you because of all the things you have to do, and you're not sure, will you get through it, and will you do everything the way you think it should be done? So and that can become a vicious cycle, of course, very quickly.
Yeah, well, as you were going through that, I just get tired thinking about it. So,
yeah, I can imagine. Yes.
and so, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, one of the things I do is coach midlife women who've come to the point of, I don't know what's next. And I think that part of that, there's a lot of things that go into that, but one of them is, I do think many of them are just exhausted. I can't keep doing this. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't keep doing this. So, Kim, I think the work you're doing is so important. And I'm curious about, is there something next for you? Is it a dream that you still want to do with your work, or?
I want to help as many women become physically strong as possible, as I can. And I know, that doesn't mean I want to help thousands of women, because I want to help those that sort of gel with me and can sort of understand and hear my message and feel that, oh yeah, this is someone I could trust her, and start moving my body in the ways she says. And I want to find all the women that I could help. I want to just keep lifting myself, lifting weights. I compete in Olympic weightlifting competitions for masters, which is a nice word for older people. You have to know that you are a master from 35 years onwards. So it's that's our world today. And when I travel to these competitions, there sometimes are guys there, like they are like in their late 80s, and they travel and they go to the weigh-in and they sleep at a hostel or a hotel, and they go to the platform and their name is called and they lift the bar overhead. And I love to be that person in like 20, 30 years time. If I can keep doing that, that would be absolutely amazing.
I am absolutely also sure that there are going to be people who want to get in touch with you, that women will be saying, how do I meet this woman? How do I get in touch with this woman? So what can they do to do that?
Well, you can have a look at my website, which is kimrahir.com. And on there, there's actually like a health and strength assessment, which is free and which will give you a good idea of where you are at with your health and strength, because it's like a holistic approach to how your strength and your well-being actually fit into your everyday life, because that's what we're doing this for, right? So our everyday life is sort of fun. That's on kimrahir.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram, where I share a lot of stuff, my own weightlifting adventures, but also lots of tips and thoughts, thoughts that I hope go a little bit against like the common diet culture grain, and that really insists that, yes, your midlife, it's a fork in the road, but it's you who decides which way you want to go.
Thank you. This has been absolutely delightful. So that's our time for today. Please join us again. You can find our Prime Spark podcast on every popular outlet. Find out more about Prime Spark at primesparkwomen.com. Thank you so much to my guest, Kim Rahir. And don't forget, you can find her at kimrahir.com. That is KIMRAHIR.com. Thank you for being with us. Take care, spread tolerance and love. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to stay updated, you can head over to my website, primesparkwomen.com, and get my free Spark Guide, 7 questions to ignite your spark, to help you discover your own spark. See you in the next episode.